Hello everyone, welcome to the S3 ViRGE overclocking guide. Lately I have been deep diving into S3 silicon and I found some fascinating, obscure info on pushing these chips to their limits. Today we're going to see if we can actually make this ancient hardware move a little faster. And for this purpose, I got out the fastest Coppermine CPU I have, a Pentium 1100. We will use MCLK to live tweak frequencies, run benchmarks, and compare the ViRGE at 50, 60, 70, and 80 MHz. Once we find the best frequency for the card, we dive into some hex values, 2 bytes to be precise, which are responsible for storing the frequency setting in the VGA BIOS. There is also a tool available on my website that will help us with the correct settings, because I still couldn't wrap my head around this formula. I've put together all my research and tools in one place, S3ViRGE.com. You'll find all the videos and blog posts I have created over the past few weeks there. I actually used Porkbun to set up the domain for this site, and they made the configuration super simple and quick. What really stood out was the transparency in pricing. Most registrars lure you in with cheap prices for the first year and then hit you with a massive renewal fee. Porkbun sells most of their domains at cost, so the renewal price stays low and predictable. Plus, and this is a big one for us tech-curious types, they don't make basic security a budget consideration. You get free WHOIS privacy to keep your personal info off the web and free SSL certificates included with every eligible domain. The interface is clean, there are no annoying upsells during checkout, and if you ever get stuck, they actually have real human support available 365 days a year. No loops of automated phone menus or useless AI bots. It's no wonder they have been ranked the #1 domain registrar by USA Today and Forbes Advisor. So if you're looking for a professional home for your next project, head over to porkbun.com. Use my link and code in the video description to get $1 off your next domain. And now, let's see how far we can push the S3 ViRGE. And we are starting with a very basic S3 ViRGE. This model is clocked at 50 MHz only. And let's start with MCLK immediately. This is a tool for DOS that allows you to read some information of your S3 card. You get some more information if you're entering the help menu, and you can see that we have settings for S3 Trio ViRGE, Trio 64V+. So there is so much more that we could investigate with this tool. We are just looking for frequency adaptation today. We can read the current frequency of our card by just using /0. So MCLK/0. First, we get information about the utility. Then we get our S3 chip. We have a PCI ViRGE DX GX revision 01. We have 1 cycle EDO memory. And on the next line is all the information we are focusing on today. So we have a 50.11 MHz clock, and then we have 3 parameters, M, N, and R. We get to these values in a moment, but if we move down a little bit, we see some sort of a formula. So this is a formula, this is the one that I showed at the beginning of this video, which determines how fast your S3 ViRGE is clocked. There are some constraints that you can see on the bottom, and now we can play around with this formula to figure out which values we have to set for M, N, and R to get to a certain frequency. Of course, this is very tedious, and that is why I have built a tool which you can access on my website. You just have to upload the ViRGE BIOS. Disclaimer, not every BIOS is going to work. For instance, the Diamond Stealth BIOS does not work with this tool, but any other standard ViRGE BIOS seems to be okay. When you upload your BIOS, you should see a sensible frequency. If you see something that doesn't make any sense, your BIOS is not compatible. Anyway, when you upload a BIOS, then we get all the possible combinations that can be set for M, N, and R to get close to the frequency that you're asking for. You can set the target frequency by moving the slider, and the table will show you which values are safe, the green ones, and which ones are out of spec or should even be avoided. I have a little bit more information about these values and which ones you should aim for a little bit later in the video, but for now let's just get a baseline of how the S3 does at 50 MHz. And for today's tests, I've decided to use PC Player. So at 50 MHz, we are getting 35.2 frames per second. This is our baseline. The card in the system is a 4 MB model, and it is clocked at 50 MHz stock. Now let's try to push it to 60 MHz. This is the stock BIOS of my S3 ViRGE, and we can see that the current BIOS is set to M68, N3, and R is 2. And this is also exactly what we have seen in MCLK. If we want to move to 60 megahertz, we will not use any of the red or yellow values. And I want to pick a value for n that is not necessarily past 5. Let's pick just one setting. I think the first one is actually not bad. Let's just take the 65, 2, and 2. By the way, if you don't have MCLK, you can just copy the debug output. So you can use debug and just execute these commands. You should get also 60 megahertz on your Verge. You can also download the script. Now we can modify these values by just saying MCLK 0, and now we just type in these numbers, the new ones for 60 megahertz, and this was 65, 2, and 2, like this. And now you can see we set exactly the frequency that we have seen on my site, 59.96 megahertz. Now let's run the test one more time and see how much we improved. Now the Verge is running at 60 megahertz. I don't see any graphical glitches, so I guess the chip is fine at this frequency. Unfortunately, this chip gets really hot. I have other cards that remain much cooler at higher frequencies. I still haven't figured out why that is. Okay, and we get 35.3 frames per second. This is exactly the same frame rate that we got before. That doesn't make any sense. And yes, we're definitely running at 60 megahertz now. So that card doesn't overclock. Let me try another setting, 115.5.2. Okay, let's try again. 35.3. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, I'll switch cards. Let's see if something changes. This is my modified S3 ViRGE 3D. This is not a real card, I named it. It's the ultimate card because, well, it does more things. It plays Snake if you want to. You have seen this before, I think. You can play Snake with this Verge before we're even initializing the USB keyboard. So yeah, I noticed this, that if I wanted to do this with a USB keyboard, it doesn't work. You have to have a PS2 keyboard on my Asus P2B. But Verge, let's go to the Verge. Now this card is clocked at 60 megahertz, exactly like what we had before. Let's try to benchmark this one more time. It really isn't the case that an S3 ViRGE is equal to an S3 ViRGE. There are so many differences, and I really don't know because the chips look identical. Well, in here at 60 megahertz, we are getting 48 frames per second. Wow, this is not bad. At 60 megahertz, 48 frames per second. Let's actually try this card with 50 megahertz. So 68.32. This should give us now 50 megahertz. Yes, now we are 50.11. This is exactly the same speed that we got on the other card. 42.2. So definitely this card is doing a lot better. The other card at 50 megahertz only managed 35.2, 35.3 frames per second. And this is supposed to be the same clock frequency. I wonder if this is because of the BIOS. Okay, I moved over the BIOS chip. Let's see what happens. Oh, we get something, but yeah, that chip is helplessly overwhelmed with this frequency because we are setting 70 megahertz, 77 megahertz actually. Let's lower our frequency. Okay, MCLK will do 6832 and we're at 50. I think we saved it now. So MCLK 0. Now we're at 50.11. Now let's run PC Player. I'm really curious if we are getting a better result now than 35.3. That would mean that our issue might just be the BIOS. These other cards, the cheap low-cost cards, have just a bad BIOS. And what frame rate do we get? No. Now I have another suspicion. Maybe this BIOS supports Visa 2.0, whereas the other BIOS only supports Visa 1.2. In PC Player, we can just use PC Player Bench /modes. And no, we have Visa 1.2. So no, it is not because of the VESA implementation why this card is faster now. Wow, I'm really speechless. I have no idea. I cannot explain why this ViRGE performs better in PC Player with this BIOS versus having its own original BIOS chip on it. I think I have to revert and try this again. So he has ViRGE benchmarks, very difficult to compare. Now the original BIOS chip is back on the card. And now let's see what kind of score we get. If we get 35, then this card is out. Then I will just use the other card and I will do all my tests 50, 60, 70 and 80 megahertz with this other card. Yeah, there we go. It is purely the BIOS. Now let's just go to PC Player Bench one more time and look at the VESA implementation. So the original BIOS supports VPE 2.0, but it is slow. Now I'm completely speechless. So the slow BIOS supports VESA 2.0, but it is slower than the other BIOS that only supports VESA 1.2. Maybe it's just a buggy VESA implementation. I don't know. If you have any idea, let me know in the comments. I would love to have a ViRGE BIOS that supports VESA 2.0, specifically the BIOS that seems to be much faster. It has the custom splash screen, it has the fixed pedestal bit, it has Snake on the ROM file. Like, it's crazy. Tja. So let's go back and just let me run the tests with the other card, 50, 60, 70 and 80 megahertz. And then we'll look at a few benchmark charts. And then we'll dig into the 2 bytes of the VGA BIOS and see how it stores these 3 values, M, N and R. Okay, and here are the results that I have gathered. We tested a few more frequencies that I thought. At 50 megahertz, we got 42.2. At 60, we got 48.1. So there are about 6 frames in between. Then at 70, we get 53.3 frames per second. There are only 5 frames in between. Then going to 80, we're shrinking again. Now we're only 4 frames better. And I guess the next one would be 90. And yeah, so it's again about 4 frames. So there is definitely diminishing return here. Now, if someone has the other card that we tested today, this one here, clocked at 50 megahertz, you don't even get 42 frames. We got 35.2. So there are another 7 frames between those 2 cards. So just because you have an S3 ViRGE clocked at a certain frequency doesn't mean that they perform the same. Now, interestingly, when I swapped the BIOS, the slow card, this one, also did better. It scored the same as the fast card. So yeah, this has to be a BIOS issue. So let's go through this very quickly. I already marked the location where our 3 values are stored: M, N, and R. And let's start with a simple one, M. Right now my card is configured to run at 77 megahertz. And this is with the parameters M41, N2, and R equals 1. And M is stored exactly at this byte. It is at byte C2. This is where 41 is stored. And here you see the binary representation and what it would be in an integer value. So 41 is encoded here. Now the other byte, this stores N and R. And how this is split? The left 3 bits are encoding the value R and the right 5 bits encode N. So we have R1 and N2. This is essentially what we also see here. And what you should in general aim for is to have a low value of N. So if you have the choice between, let's say, 7 or sometimes even 9 and 13, 11, well, this is out of range. There are some values, 10, 11, and let's say, yeah, they're all within the range. But if you can, then maybe go for a 4 or even here a 2. So I would prefer this setting over this setting, for instance. So 2 for N is better than 4. And what I understood is that this is how often the chip realigns or repositions itself to create a stable image. To be honest, I haven't seen any difference of the video output, so I think it's not even important. But this is what was recommended. Pick the N as low as possible. Okay, and I think this is everything I have for this video. It's already quite long. Well, we took a detour figuring out that the BIOS on one of my ViRGE cards is absolute trash. By the way, if you want to have one of my BIOSes, head over to my website. You can find the post fixing the S3 brightness bug. And here, it's just a write down of the videos that I made. Here at the bottom, you will find the S3 ViRGE patched BIOS. This is exactly the BIOS, just with a fixed pedestal bit that I have used today, which is the fast BIOS. I also have the Trio V2, and there is also the patched Trio 3D2X. This is an HEP BIOS, patched and original. So yeah, you have these files for download on my website. So nobody asked me to upload this BIOS. And now we'll have a small preview what may come in the future. You let me know if you want to see this. Well, one you have seen already. This is Snake in the VGA BIOS. And another thing that might be interesting is that, well, since now we overclocked the BIOS, it bugged me that when I see the text splash screen, that it still says M70 for the ViRGE. So this is clearly the hard-coded text that is inside the BIOS file. Wouldn't it be cool if we use the values that we store in the BIOS where we know their location now, read them, use the formula to calculate the actual frequency and display it instead of the 70? If you're interested in this, let me know in the comments, then I'll make another video about this. So 2 things in one video, Snake and making this text splash screen dynamic to show the exact frequency the BIOS is configured for. Okay, and this is all I have for you today. Thank you Porkbun for sponsoring this video. Thank you to all my Patreons and all the people supporting Bits and Bolts here on YouTube. If you want to support this channel, please head over to Patreon or become a member here directly on YouTube. And of course, if you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for watching, and I hope I will see you in my future videos. Take care and bye bye.